Thank you, Reverend Ernestina. The speaker today has been involved with the chapel for many years, and I don't want to say how many years, because that tells me how old I am. You know the invocation that we say every week? She's the author of that. When she was in her seminary, that was one of the things I had that seminary do, and she came up with that. And we've been saying it ever since. And so I introduce to you Rev Marsha Zimmerman.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend David. That was an interesting assignment that I had back then. And it touches me to hear people saying those words on Sunday when I'm here. So thank you. Thank you, Reverend Ernestina, for that meditation. Good afternoon. The topic for this week is authority. And authority is defined as the power to command, or a person with the power to command, or someone who is a reliable source about something. And I've been thinking about the topic of authority, and one of the things that I considered is what people have commonly accepted as authority during different periods of time. So at one time, it was generally accepted knowledge that the earth was flat. And if you traveled too far, you would fall off the edge of the earth. Everybody knew that this was true. And if someone said that the earth was round, they would be laughed at as ridiculous. Gravitational pull was unheard of. Why would anyone think that a person could walk upside down on a ball? And it wasn't very long ago when women couldn't vote. And it wasn't very long ago that restaurants, bathrooms, water fountains, hotels, and schools were segregated by color of skin. We're told in the media how values are supposed to be defined. We're told who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. And since we have internet and 24-hour news programs, people are inundated with information that someone claims to be the only authority who knows the real truth. However, all too often people don't take the time to validate or question all of these facts that are thrown around as truth. There was an interesting confrontation that happened a number of years ago, and some of you might remember it. Tom Cruise said in an interview that Brooke Shields was wrong to take antidepressants when she experienced postpartum depression. He said that she should have taken vitamins instead. And he knew this absolutely because he claimed that he was an authority on what psychiatry really is. And he also indicated separately from the Brooke Shields thing that his religion of Scientology teaches that children shouldn't be stifled from creating their own ideas, and they should be encouraged to form their own path in life. So children shouldn't be stifled from creating their own ideas and should be encouraged to form their own path in life. So let's put this together. Brooke Shields was born. She was a child. So wouldn't she be able to make her own decisions about what her path in life would be? Wouldn't his condemning of her making her own medical decisions actually be against his own religious teaching that he claimed to be an authority of? He eventually apologized to her. It was much later, and it was after he had been challenged on some of his claims. But I bring this up because there are so many things that are accepted as fact because some authority says that it's so. And yet the fact-checking and logical links sometimes just go out the window. Quite often, the authority that's quoted is based on somebody's opinion that's been handed down, and then nobody even remembers why it ever got to be that way. Or, like the gravitational pull example, thinking that we could all fall off of this flat earth, people just hadn't learned all the information that they needed to come up with a different conclusion. The people who first brought up the idea of an earth shaped like a globe and that gravitational pull holds us in place were not considered to be sane. I really like the story about the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy and her friends are looking for the Wizard of Oz because they were told that through him they would get the answers to all their challenges. The lion wants courage. The Tin Man wants a heart, or perhaps compassion. The Scarecrow wants a brain. He wants to find wisdom. And Dorothy wants to find her way back home. They're all looking for their answers outside of themselves from some greater power. Did you know that the word Oz is actually a Hebrew word that means power? The great and powerful Oz. But what they found was that everything they needed was right within themselves all the time. They just took the long, hard way to figure it out. They had no awareness that they already were everything that they thought they lacked. The awareness of your own inner authority, your own inner knowing, is the key. What we work on here at the chapel is a study of metaphysics. We study and teach natural law and the basic principles of metaphysics. We study and teach ways of looking at life and learning to live life with a bit more ease. And we each have the inner authority to make our own decisions as to how to do that in our own best way. We basically have three things that we use in order to create our lives. We have our thoughts, we have our words, and we have our actions. And our actions are created through the people, the places, and the things in our lives. So if you feel that you're lacking in happiness, then in order to create happiness, it would make sense to think happy thoughts, speak happy words, and surround yourself with happy people in happy places doing happy things. So if instead you're sitting around thinking about how unhappy you are and talking about how unhappy everything is and hanging out with other people who are unhappy at those unhappy places doing unhappy things, then why do we get surprised when we get more unhappiness? It might seem backwards at first to think that it would make sense for someone to say happy affirmations when they're feeling exactly the opposite of that, but logically it makes sense that creating happiness takes happy efforts. Creating health takes efforts that are healthy. Creating wealth takes efforts that are financially responsible. I am not the authority of what everyone else should do. I'm not going to stand here and tell you what choices you should make in your lives. It's a full-time job for me to make my own choices. Each of us is our own authority. The thing is that our experience with one another tells us what works and what doesn't work. And we make our choices based on our own experiences. We're creating our own dictionaries as we learn to define life through what we experience moment to moment, day to day, year to year. And we get really good at whatever it is that we're doing. One thing that we do know is that change is constant. You can either get really good at what you've always done, or you can start learning to get really good at something else. So if what you're doing is creating happiness, health, and wealth in your life, then keep on keeping on. But if you're experiencing unhappiness, ill health, and lack, then there are probably some other choices that you might be able to make to begin the process of creating the opposite. And you're the one who's the authority of what that is. Why not get really good at happiness, health, and wealth? You have the authority to do just that. Like Dorothy and her friends traveling through the Land of Oz together, sometimes we take the long road and a difficult route to figure out that what we need was right within us all the time. Sometimes I like to compare it to a trip from Tucson to Phoenix. And I know that if I get on I-10 and I go west and then I go north, it takes about 2 hours to get to Phoenix. But if I didn't know that, I could end up in El Paso or San Diego. And I could keep getting lost, and then I could end up in New York or Chicago or Seattle and still keep trying to find my way to Phoenix. The easier route was there, but life just kind of gets in the way sometimes, and we learn through our experiences. We do have the simpler route available to us, and at the same time we're experiencing the culmination of all the effects of the choices that we've made along the way. We're traveling all over the Land of Oz to find ourselves. So to make life simpler, to help move forward in life with a bit more ease, ask yourself some questions. What can you do this day to create happiness in your life? What can you do this day that will create health in your life? What can you do this day that will create wealth in your life? You have the answers. You think, you speak, and you act. You go to places, you meet people, you have material substance. You have the authority to do the same things as you've always done, or you can do something different. You can dare to do some little thing differently that can begin that chain reaction of creation that puts you back on I-10 to get to Phoenix instead of all over the Land of Oz. Sometimes doing something differently can seem really difficult because it doesn't feel familiar yet. But each time you think that new thought, say that new word, do that new action, you can get better and better at whatever it is that you decide to do. One new thought pattern can create a change of ideas that can then create a change in what words are spoken, which can create a change in reactions to the people, places, and things that are surrounding you. And we each have the authority to come up with our own best way to do just that. The first 6 letters of the word authority spell author. And author is the originator of an idea that creates something new. You're the author of your ideas. So you're the creator of your life. Create with awareness of what your goals are and be patient. Understand that creating something new takes time. Just like it takes time for a seed to grow and develop into a strong plant that produces its harvest. If you know that you're in charge, you're your own authority, then what will you decide to create today? Each moment is a new opportunity to create your best life. God bless you.